Color is all around us every day, everywhere, and is a huge factor in how we live our lives. I mean, we wouldn't eat green eggs and ham, but as soon as those colors are returned to normal, the food becomes edible again. Now, color plays a huge role in our perception of everyday events, the emotions we feel behind them, and how the consumer world uses those colors around us. See, the human body perceives color using light-sensitive rods and cones, which take place behind our retinas. Now, the cones are the light-sensitive material that we have about 6 million of, and we have about 120 million rods, uh, which are used to gather like value, contrast, luminosity, and pretty much anything that isn't exactly color. From there, these messages get sent along our optic nerve as a message throughout our brain for us to perceive and visually see. All right. From there, we do more than just look at something. We scan it. And with this, I'm referring to the movement of saccades, which are these quick, rapid eye movements. They happen about 3 times per second, but we're left pretty much unaware of it. This is just a means of gathering information without us really even knowing, as a quick scan of the environment. An Australian professor from the University of South New Wales in Sydney wrote that one time that the human eye tends to notice and focus on objects that are brighter or feature movement, which is called the fixational reflex. See, what we see and what we feel are processed nearly side by side. This means that the emotions and what we see play heavily on each other. Most common most common inference of this is that kids have a negative connotation with the color red. See, a study in 2016 at a French university tested 136 elementary kids, asking them to play a game. This game was divided of 72 cards with a green, red, gray field. On these pictures, they would have pictures of just heads of men and women, and they asked the kids to separate these cards based on how they thought the person felt. Red meaning bad, green meaning good, gray just kind of was a toss-up in the middle. While most of these kids associated red with negative connotation, green with positive connotation, this also translates to how adults see red as a negative connotation. This may be that blood, kind of animal, naturalistic instinct, but color may get its value through our culture or upbringing, and objects that are that color, and other objects that are that color. See, Asian cultures, they look at white and we see it as a sign of purity and sanitary that we have in hospitals. While in China, white is a sign of mourning, and unlike black in America, or like black in American culture. Color in the modern world revolves around two things, CMYK and RGB. RGB is used in pretty much all electronics, and we all have something that uses RGB on us right now. RGB is composed of 16,777,216 colors. Now this works in an additive light process using 256 values of red, green, and blue to create the colors that we see on screen. Now, all iPhones, watches, laptops use these RGB lights in our monitors, and it hasn't changed since back when we only had black screens with green type on them when computers were first come around. RGB is the largest spectrum of color that we are capable of reproducing on a screen, and is pretty close to what the human eye sees, but cannot, and I quote, but cannot fully be compared to the physiology of a human eye. That comes from a group of physicists at an Italian university in 2016. Now CMYK, on the other hand, is used in everything that isn't digital, pretty much anything printed, like our clothes, paper, pretty much anything that we man-made create and print out. This has a much smaller range of only 100 or 1.2 million colors. Now, the problem that we run into with this is that everything digitally we create is RGB, while everything we print is CMYK. Now, have you ever taken a photo or found an image on the internet and you were like, wow, this is awesome, I need to print this out? But when you print it out, it just doesn't quite look the same. This is exactly because all digital media is used in RGB light, which has 60 million color combinations, but when it's transferred to CMYK to print, it loses millions of different colors and has to resort that range to only 1.2 million different colors. Now, this may not seem like a big deal, but it's a huge deal when companies have to design around this. I mean, a company isn't going to design a t-shirt in RGB because it's just going to lose that color when printed in CMYK. You wouldn't design something in CMYK that you're going to put on the web just because those colors won't look the same. Colors like oranges, greens, and blues are often most difficult to carry over from RGB to CMYK. Alright, now, color is personal, yet universally understood, and is all about communication.